This is going to be a little bit more of an educational one that we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about Retell AI. We're also going to be talking about like the different iterations of it. It's just a different type of voice agent. We've gone over several different voice agents. We have Mario here, and he's going to talk about Retell today and like kind of the possibilities there. So again, just showing a lot of options in the AI space that can kind of connect to it. So tell me a little bit about Retell. Like, why do you like it? I know you've been operating a lot in it, and I know you've been messing around with it. What do you like about it, and why there versus some of the other ones we have?
Yeah, so I think taking a little bit of a step back and understanding kind of the foundation of voice AI in its current state is really important. So there are realistically 4 major providers of voice AI technology on the market right now. So you have SynthFlow, which one of the OGs, not doing so hot right now with all of their system outages and just general poor quality of stuff. You have Retell AI, which is one of the top providers, up and coming, well-funded startup, doing amazing work in the voice AI space. You have VAPI, which is the most developer-friendly of the voice AI solutions. And you have Bland, which kind of exists out there in its own little isolated boat, right? But almost every single voice provider on the market is built on one of those 4 platforms. All of those 3 of the 4 platforms share a core framework, which is why they look so similar. And Bland is the outlier in their own technology development and things like that.
So again, all kind of doing very similar things, just different options with a different taste. Now, before we get really deep into it, you mentioned about 4. Like I said, we've been using Accessible. We're really happy with it. We think it's great. And I probably is one of the underlying kind of base platforms for that. But again, just for anybody viewing, these are just the different types of voice AI that are out there. You're not limited to one. You just have somebody that, like Mario and myself, who's been testing a lot of these to try to find the one that we think works the same exact way, right? Now, you mentioned VAPI. VAPI is very developer friendly, but I would say for like the normal, like everyday user, it's got a little bit of a learning streak, right?
Oh yeah, VAPI is tough. It's probably one of the most powerful platforms on the market. And the reason it's so powerful is because you can do what are called transient assistance. And there's like all these other things that you can do in VAPI, but it's all done through code, which makes it really complex for your average user. That's what I love about Retell, is that you have the code flexibility for the most part, but the user interface for Retell is absolutely amazing. I was a staunch VAPI user for the last year and change. I have always been team VAPI. And then with Retell's most recent releases on their UI, especially with the conversation flows and things like that, it just works. I think that's probably the best part, is there's no tweaking. You have the ability to tweak the settings, but they pretty much dialed in everything right there for you, down to the tonality and emotional space of the voice.
Well, let's just get right to it. Let's just see this thing, man. So as always, guys, we always try to bring you the best content so we can actually see things live, so you can see it for yourself and you make your own decisions. We really don't push anything on this channel. Again, you're free to just explore what we show you and then go out and either decide on it or try to build it yourself. And we try to give as many clear instructions as we possibly can. So on the screen, we have the interface of Retell AI. So yeah, wow, look at this. This looks very much like BotPress, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it feels a lot like if you were to take BotPress and VoiceFlow and give them a baby, that would be Retell, essentially.
Very cool. So this is the normal flow of a call coming in or a script activating the call?
This can be either. So this can either be the call comes in and begins here, or this is an outbound call that is being made to the user. So one thing that I want to just cover really quickly, just so everyone understands the general architecture of voice AI, is that you start with speaking, right? So I'm speaking to you, Nuno, and we're having a verbal conversation. What happens then is you actually have a transcription model that is a mini AI of sorts that is designed to interpret human speech and turn it into text, right? So you have speech to text, and then that text layer gets fed to OpenAI, or in this case, Anthropic, Claude or ChatGPT, what have you, as text, right? ChatGPT, or the AI model, responds as text. And then you have a platform like 11 Labs, which is text to speech. And that's what reads the statement from the AI. And the AI is essentially prompted that it needs to provide a response that is only the response that should be read by the text to speech engine.
Yeah, it makes sense. There's always a couple of those middle layers. So for everybody, like in kind of normal speak, and I'll just translate a little bit. I mean, perfectly explained, but call comes in, it comes in a voice. The bot doesn't understand voice, so it has to always be like transcribed to text. It receives that text, it goes through its rules of how it can respond. It generates a response, and then once again, the response has to be translated to voice. So all this is going on in like microseconds at this point, and it's getting faster and better on how to do that. So there's always these layers when it comes to voice, voice to text, text to response, text to then back to voice. So everybody needs to understand that. Doesn't matter which AI version you're using. This is kind of what happens with all AI as of now. I mean, one day they'll probably go away, but as of now, this is how the computers are processing all this information.
Right. Exactly. And so you have a couple different things in Retell that I want to show you. So this is a brand new Retell account that I'm setting up for HL Pro Tools. We are migrating off of VAPI and actually migrating over to Retell just because the ease of use is so much better. The reliability is so much better. One really cool quick tip or quick fact about Retell, they actually have their own dedicated OpenAI servers.
Oh, wow.
They're one of the very few that are backed by OpenAI. And in that, they have the ability on demand during an outage to spin up very quickly those on demand servers and fall back to their dedicated cluster. So even when everybody else has an OpenAI outage, your telephones never go down.
Wow. So they're throwing some massive amount of money into that.
Yeah. Like I said, man,
Wow.
Retell is the serious player. Like almost every AI that gets recommended on HighLevel in the HighLevel forums and stuff like that are all built off Retell.
Very, very cool. Did not know that. That is very cool.
So their API is super flexible, all kinds of cool stuff. So anyway, so we have the ability right here to create voice and chat agents. So we're going to focus today on voice agents, but you do have the ability to create both. And these can actually interface with n8n. And then n8n will interface with HighLevel. It comes back to n8n, back to Retell. So that's kind of the architecture right now. They are working on a direct HighLevel integration.
That was going to be my next question. Is there a direct HighLevel integration? So not yet, right? So if you want to use this with HighLevel, you have to put like n8n in the middle of it.
Or Make or Zapier or something like that.
Got it.
You know, Make is really easy to set up. n8n are a little bit harder to set up, but you can use like Make.com and GHL Growth Tools modules with Scott Helliker, which has all of the appointment API endpoints associated with it. So you can use those modules and Retell to seamlessly connect it into HighLevel. And it's totally a cinch after that. I mean, it's really easy to use. So we're going to go ahead and create a voice AI agent. Now we have different styles of agents, right? So we've got a conversation flow agent. We've got a single prompt agent, a multi-prompt agent, and a custom LLM. We're going to not talk about custom LLMs today because that's an entirely other conversation. We're going to cover conversation flow, single prompt, and multi-prompt, at least from a high-level standpoint, pun intended. So think conversation flow as like a funnel, right? Where in the conversation flow, I have a very pointed goal associated with that conversation. So I say, I want you to book an appointment with this user. And at every step of the process, its goal ultimately is to book appointments with that user. A single prompt agent is designed for things like no-show follow-ups, meeting reminders, two-factor authentication notifications, basically anything that is a short duration call or an easy to achieve goal, right? So you wouldn't want to do something like, I need to ask a bunch of questions. You don't want to do things like, I need to go through qualification steps. That's designed for the multi-prompt agent or the conversation flow. Multi-prompt agent is a little bit more akin to a website in that you have the ability to originate in one place and diverge into different branches that are singular focused tasks to accomplish a step-by-step transaction.
Like a qualification.
Yeah, you can traverse any one of those branches.
Yeah, so for that one, just give people a kind of example. So if I was like a real estate agent and I wanted to qualify them prior to jumping onto a booking call, it would first go to the qualifying agent. From the qualifying agent, it would go to the booking agent. And then from the booking agent, it can go, pretty much whatever else. But multi-prompts, it goes from agent to agent based on whether or not the goal's been accomplished, which is pretty darn cool.
Yep. And in multi-prompt, it's more for like if you want a sales department, if you want a support department, if you want, each one of those individual kind of departmental configurations in your voice AI. So think like intelligent voice routing, where it's like press 1 for sales, press 2 for support, press 3 for customer service, 4 for billing, right? You can do that in multi-agent routing. Whereas you wouldn't do that in conversational flow, because conversational flow is complex tasks to achieve one mission. Does that make a little bit more sense, Nuno?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes great sense. So conversational flow agent for anything that's going to be single line, like you're just trying to get them to buy a product, book an appointment, one type of appointment. Multi-prompt, I have now a choice, or I have different parts to my overall goal. And then single prompt, just straightforward task. We have an example of what a single prompt would be?
Yeah, so a single prompt would be like, I use single prompt agents for meeting reminders.
Okay.
So I use single prompt agents for things like meeting reminders, things like no-show follow-ups, hey, we're waiting in the Zoom room. Are you joining? Yes or no?
Very cool.
But I wouldn't use it for something like, I noticed you canceled your services. Would you mind telling me why? And then stepping through questions. For that, I'd use a conversation flow agent.
Yeah, same thing, folks. Very, very cool. Yeah, so I see patient screening there, real estate lead qualification, which is pretty awesome. Cool. Let's do it, man. Let's build one of these things. Oh, wow.
Yes.
There's more. Holy crap. I didn't even know there was more.
Yeah, there's plenty of them. So you have outbound sales representatives, you have appointment setters, customer support, lead qualification, patient screening, all sorts of stuff. As you click these different prompt agents, they're going to give you, so you see how it says like healthcare check-in and notification. Those are really simple tasks, right? And again, we're not promoting Retell. We don't make any commission off of you guys signing up for Retell. I don't even know if they have an affiliate program.
This is not a sales pitch. We're just educating here.
Yeah, this is, in my opinion, the best AI solution currently on the market for especially outbound sales. And I get this question a lot when it comes to outbound sales and what's the best way to, handle, calling on these leads using AI. Now, there are a lot of legalities, around calling on leads.
And I got to be honest, I've been trying to educate everybody on this. We are in no way, and I want to be very clear, Mario and I are in no way promoting that you do outbound calling whatsoever. Well, I'll speak for myself, and I know Mario, I think, feels the same way. We're actually very against it right now because it is so a gray area that unless you have a massive amount of money to back you up and you can handle fines from carriers and the FCC, right? FCC?
Yeah, Federal Communications Commission.
Yeah. So FCC and also the carriers themselves, you can be fined for doing outbound calls in certain states at certain times. So there are blue laws you have to adhere to. There are calling laws that you have to adhere to. There are state-specific laws. There are county-specific laws. And no way are we legal lawyers or can give any of that legal advice. You have to be very careful when it comes to outbound calling. Now, that being said, again, do your research and find somebody who knows all those laws. And if it's something that's legal in your state and you can do based on your business type, and you're willing to take the risk and you have the money to back off, knock your socks off. For the brand new person expecting that and tries this out, you make one wrong move, it could be a $10,000 fine per carrier, per call, per message. And it's a big deal. It's not like $100 slap on the wrist. It is literally $10,000, $20,000 from each of the carriers for each of the calls that you make. It's a very serious thing that you want to be very, very careful in. It's such a gray area that literally even the lawyers themselves don't even like where to go here. So just be super careful. Now for inbound, you are talking a whole nother game. Inbound, it is completely okay to use it. The only thing that I would also suggest is that anybody using AI, we've updated our terms and service and privacy policy saying that we are using AI agents to answer calls and also to respond to messages. So you might just want to change your language a little bit to inflect that because again, that is the reality of the situation. And again, it's just a little extra protection. So just be very careful on how you use this stuff because it does have the ability of outbound calling and they're not going to be held accountable. You are. So just be very careful. That being said, I don't want to scare anybody, but again, that's only outbound. If you're not doing any outbound, none of that applies to you.
Well, I think one of the important clarifications is that outbound calling is ruled as robocalling. So if you're able to use automated dialing systems in your industry or with your explicit opt-ins, or a great example of outbound calling, Nuno, is I text someone, hey, do you mind if my AI calls you to help you book your appointment? right? I've seen that work really well. Or, hey, do you mind if my AI calls you to grab some quick information before our meeting in 15 minutes, right? So I've seen some really good kind of creative use cases for outbound, but I get that question a lot around like, how do I do outbound? So do with it what you will. Again, Nuno and I are not lawyers. We're not promoting outbound, but this works for inbound and outbound. So let's say that someone calls in, right? And I want to we'll use the education program appointment setter.
Awesome.
I really like this one. So this is one of the ones that I've been using lately. And what I do with the education appointment setter is literally as simple as modifying each one of these blocks, right? So
you zoom in just so that we can see like kind of the prompt. Awesome.
Yep. So you have the difference between static sentence and prompt. So static sentence is going to read out directly the sentence that is placed in here. And it's really important, guys, to know that when you're doing AI calls, to explicitly state that it's an AI. You want to state up front and set that expectation to the customer that they're going to be engaging with an AI. Are you going to turn some people off? Are they going to get frustrated and say, I want to speak to a human? Yes, you can factor in for that. What you don't want to do is make someone think it's human and then they figure out it's AI and they get mad.
Absolutely.
Now, you might say, like, as a marketer or something like that, I want it to seem as human as possible because I think it'd be really cool to slip through the radar because, that's going to prove that it works, right? But you're not selling to other marketers. You're selling to business owners and customers. And business owners and customers either want to engage with a human or they want to know that they're engaging with AI. And they're actually more likely to be curious about the fact that it's an AI because you stated that up front. So right in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this static sentence. So it says hi, and we're going to actually spell this a little bit differently. This is Nuno AI Mario from the Automated Marketer on YouTube. Is this first name? Now, the cool thing with Retell is you have this test button over here. So you actually have the ability to publish or test. To answer engaged reach, absolutely. You would simply add that as a transition card. So you'd say if the user, actually we're going to do one a little bit different. We're going to do delete this condition. And what we'd actually do is we'd add a call transfer and we would say a warm transfer, it's a global node. And the condition would be if at any point the user indicates they'd like to speak to a human. So this right here in this global node is going to automatically transfer the call to this number, which is a fictitious number. Don't try calling this number because it doesn't go anywhere. I'm not putting my phone number on YouTube. Last time I did that, I ended up with a stalker. It was very weird. So not making that mistake again. Can't fool me twice. So you would put your phone number of where you want to transfer this into right here. You can also do dynamic routing. So you can enable, like, let's say that they want to speak to a person, but they want to speak to a person in sales, or they want to speak to a person in customer success. You can actually change the routing of this right here. So it's super, super powerful. But this simple global node is how you'd enable the transfer to answer engaged reaches question. So right here, we're going to go back to here. So I'm actually going to spawn this into a new tab. And I am going to call this Vibe Friday with Nuno and Mario test.
So I'm going to tell you something. You know how to best spell my name for computers?
How?
So new and no. So if you do N-E-W and then K-N-O-W, it actually works really well with the dash on it.
No joke.
Yeah, I thought it was funny because sometimes, believe it or not, it actually does my name pretty well regardless, but it was pretty funny. Somebody actually did that for me and they're like, hey, I figured it out. I'm like, whoa.
That's hilarious. Okay, so let me try and call this number really quick. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to phone numbers. This is, you can try calling this number if you want. YouTube, it's not going to make a difference because it's going to AI. So what we're going to do is we are going to call 805.
Hi, this is Nuno's AI Mario from the Automated Marketer on YouTube. Is this first name?
Yeah, this is Mario.
Nice to speak with you, Mario. I saw you recently reached out about our program. Is now a good time to chat for a few minutes?
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome, thanks. So just to give you a quick overview, our program lets students earn college credit.
So that's how easy it was to set up a Retell AI.
Wow, that's pretty freaking cool. Now, as far as the configuration though, because this is like the one that's going to kind of break people a little bit on the sense of how to do this in the end. I know we said like, just to keep this kind of like call everybody understanding, like we don't want to overwhelm. This is already going to be quite a bit. We're introducing you to a new system. We went in, we showed you where the conversation is. We told you the 3 types of conversations. We talked a little bit about AI and kind of the base on it. Let's go like just a little bit deeper into this. So, okay, so now the welcome happens. What's the next node? And then on the next call, like on next Friday, what we'll do is we'll show the connection, because that connection piece is probably going to be the harder piece of it all. So I think, Mario, you and I were talking about it. I think we're going to definitely divide this into 2, because you guys are going to either, we're ruining somebody's weekend because they're going to try to figure this out.
Yeah,
You know, every
exactly.
time a new introduction to an AI, I've been known, and I think you kind of get known for the same thing. We ruin people's weekends because we show you the stuff on Friday and everybody's like, oh, now I got to go try Retell.
It ruins my weekend too. Not at all. Honestly, I love AI. I love my weekend getting ruined. If I wasn't moving houses this weekend, I would totally be playing with Retell and VO. So I want to save a little bit of time to talk about VO and a couple other tools while we're at it. But basically, the next area is this prompt. So this is where you can type in different prompts. I'll actually show you one that is about to be live. And this is the HL Pro Tools AI assistant named Tiffany. So the AI assistant named Tiffany first goes through this welcome node. It then goes through this conversation node. You can either put an example of the conversation or you can put an exact prompt, right? So for example, I have in here this conversation, but when you go down here into here, this is an actual prompt, right? So there are different use cases for different features in terms of prompt and static sentence. So you want to make sure that you're just using, so like this one, for example, let me try and zoom in here. This one, for example, says provide the user with the available time slots. Under no circumstance should you hallucinate or provide anything other than the time slots reserved by the tool call. Once you provide the available time slots to the user, ask them if one of the time slots works for them. If I have to say time slots one more time, it's going to be like, how many times can a woodchuck chuck? But anyways, I digress to say, this is the magical integration that Nuno was just talking about with HighLevel. And I'll really quickly show you what that actual integration looks like. Bear with me 2 seconds to pull that up.
More importantly, remember, we are going to go a little bit more in detail with this on the next one. We just want to make sure that we show you how that kind of like works behind the scenes. And then next week, we'll kind of help you guys integrate it a little bit so you can kind of see.
Yep. So next week, what we're going to do is we're going to break down this scenario into its constituent parts. And I want to talk a little bit about how this works and how we engage with AIs. Just some food for thought for everybody. We engage with in a verbal conversation very differently than we engage in a text-based conversation. When we engage in an auditory verbal conversation, normal speaking conversation, right? What happens is you make kind of assumptions. You're reading the person's body language. You're, pausing for effect. You have kind of different intonations, right? So you have to plan for these factors when you're building a voice AI. A lot of times what happens is people try and make it too rigid and it's not fluid enough. And then the AI just sounds very monotone and very boring. So in this scenario, what I've done is I've actually pre-programmed in things like checking for their time zone. Because if you send a user a message in text, you typically say 4 p.m. Eastern time, right? But in this case, the user is going to make the assumption, and you could say that it's 4 p.m. Eastern time in the message returning to the user. But the further you are away from their time zone, or if they have a hard time like me with like temporal context in general, like I have no concept of time whatsoever.
No wonder you can defy it.
I know, right? No concept of time whatsoever. And perk, I don't get jet lagged. Negative, I miss my anniversary dinner and things like that because I get wrapped up in code. But I digress to say, what you want to do is make it as close as possible to the user's best experience. So in this scenario, what it does is it actually gets the user's phone number and it asks HighLevel if we have their time zone. If we don't have their time zone, it actually determines what their time zone is based on their area code. So this is a little bit of a creative hack that I put in. This was kind of one of my little brainchilds, or brainchildren, not brainchilds, brainchildren. I speak English. One of my brainchildren for how to better engage with people using voice AI. Because one of the challenges that I found was that people would pause for an extended, and I did this over like 1,000 phone calls, right? I analyzed all of the conversation, and I've been doing this I do this for a lot of clients, right? So I have access to call recordings and analysis and transcripts and show rates and booking rates and all sorts of things. And I basically noodled down, how can I make this better? And one of the key things I found was to reduce the user's amount of thinking as much as possible. So that was number one. And I actually have two versions of this scenario. There's even a more supercharged version of this scenario where the user doesn't even get free slots. The user just says when they want to book. It tries to book it. If it can't book it, then it gives them free slots. So we're going to cover those kind of different nuanced topics next week. But yeah, so it determines their time zone. It determines whether daylight savings is active or not. This was another bump in the road that I found when I was doing voice AI calls for appointment setters, was that EST is not the same as EDT. Did you know that, Nuno?
No, I did not.
Yes. I found out the very hard way because all of my appointments were an hour off across like 100 appointments.
I did not know that. I actually thought it was the same thing. Go figure.
Nope, they are not. And certain places like Indiana are always EST, whereas Cleveland, Ohio is EDT. So you need to know the difference between the two. So that's what this one does right here, is it actually takes the IANA time zone and factors in daylight savings. So we do some date transformations. We get some free slots. We actually have, and again, everyone, we're going to go over this a lot more in depth next week. I'll go through the code and explain how it works, what it does. And if you're lucky, I may even have Nuno put up a QR code where you can link to my GitHub, and I will give you a copy of this scenario.
What? Heard it here, folks.
Code.
Look at all this science that we're throwing at you, and on top of you, we're going to give you a freebie. Holy smokes.
Yeah, man. So tune in next week for sure on that. But basically what this one does is algorithmically get the 3 most probable slots based on the user's input. To answer Miguel's question, yes, essentially we are using not GHL's voice AI agent, but using Retell's voice AI agent to handle outbound calls with n8n. Sorry, Dakota or Kodak to Boston. I know my PC is a little bit blurry. It's kind of hard to zoom in on the screen, but I'm actually going to give you guys this scenario next week on the call. So you'll be able to follow along live, where you don't need to actually read the code itself because you'll get the live information.
Yeah, the other thing is too, folks, when we process this video, 7020 is all that it'll allow to go on Restream. Based on internet connection, there's really nothing we can do about it. But what happens is this records, and usually probably like 2 weeks after, we always try to make the video high quality, and then we go. But again, you don't really honestly need to worry about it because we will be giving the automation on top of it, on top of showing you how to do it yourself.
So Georgetta asked a question. So you could, if you wanted, go between a custom vector DB with the call recordings if the customer wanted, and GHL and any LLM if you wanted. Yes, Georgetta, you are absolutely correct. And Miguel's question is, got it. GHL is the information hub for all the prospects. That's absolutely correct.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we usually love using GHL and why we're big fans of GHL, because it just becomes a really good hub for a lot of the stuff that's going on. So it's just really important that everybody understands this. Like, we both coach for HL Pro Tools, big fan of HL Pro Tools, which supports HighLevel. We've been in HighLevel for right at the inception between me and Mario. We have all of that. And notice that all the AI we've been using, we bring it back into HighLevel because it's a great place to manage all your contacts. It does a lot more than just through voice AI and everything else, because it has the calendars are hosted in there. Your AI is hosted in there. Your CRM is hosted in there. Your nurturing sequence could be hosted in there. Your funnels, your payment processing, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So it's the great big house that can house all this different AI. And there you go. What's really cool is, Engage Reach just said, again, we are now doing the actual coding that he has. I didn't even know that Mario had that code. That's a pretty badass code. because a lot of people don't even have that. I know that just in itself alone is probably what its weight in gold. So your little brainchild can now be giving birth to a lot of other little brainchilds.
Hey man, that's what you and I are here for, right, brother? Like that's the whole point of these calls, is for us to share and, you know, help people learn and everything else. I'm not ignoring you guys. I'm actually pulling up something on my screen. I just have to re-sign into literally everything, which is taking forever. So to answer Engage Reach's question about if you have the address, could you have the address override the area code? Yes, absolutely. That is totally doable.
Cool. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So again, we gave you the introduction of how to do all this. So what's going to be really cool is, again, next week, we're going to get really dig deep and kind of build it out a little bit further and create it like basically the interconnection. And then again, just chime in because that one is going to be a little bit more difficult, a little bit more in depth. And again, PRB team is Retell AI is in replacement of, so GHL Voice and Retell are doing the same thing. So if we were using Retell, we would stop using GHL Voice and use Retell instead. But again, we would still use GHL as the base program where everything is coming into. So hopefully that answers your question. So we're going to give you guys a little introduction. You guys have probably seen this, where we are going to be using the AI that is basically Google Gemini released their video, text to video, and actually text to video to audio AI that they did that basically we can create videos with. So go ahead, Mario.
Nuno, do I have your permission to do something funny?
Oh, God, help us. Yeah, just
cool.
Please, something not, well, you're going to grow hair? Because that's not embarrassing at all. Are you going to make me a woman? Oh, that's fantastic. It's just, don't make me anything that my wife is going to get mad at. So that being said, Kodak saying, I've got an automation I'm working on and it's stressing me out and done with automation, but the mails are going into spam. Kodak, on the Automated Marketer YouTube channel, if you go into email and just type in email, you'll be able to get a whole bunch of videos to help you that and go and just nerd out on that. You'll see it there. Would you still use the GHL phone numbers? Actually, that's a really good question, Mario, while this video is generating. My BizSuite asked, would you still use the GHL phone numbers in Retell? You would not, right?
No, you would use either Telnix or Twilio numbers, and you would forward the HighLevel numbers to Retell after a certain time period using IVR or something like that. There's a bunch of different ways you can kind of skin that cat. My BizSuite. If you want to drop my link up on the screen, Nuno.
Yeah, for anybody that wants to do setups for n8n, Mario is right here.
Also, that has my socials and contact info. So if you scan that QR code, you can find me on social media. I'm happy to answer more of these kind of in-depth questions in a little bit more of a one-to-one format. I, love helping people. Nuno loves helping people. We're always available. So please, if you're watching this on YouTube or you're watching this live, feel free to reach out to us directly and we'll help you guys where available. Next question is, go ahead. That one's for you.
So you demo course, are you going to keep it updated? Yeah, my goal is to do that. Again, for anybody that hasn't noticed, honestly, it'll probably be the best $20 you've ever spent in your life. I put a lot of love and effort. We were actually going to make that course $997 because of how much stuff was in there. And if you guys haven't checked it out, make sure you do. That Udemy is pretty crazy. Miguel asks, is this still free to correct? No, none of this is free. So we'll give you a little bit of advice, but Mario is not free. Let me just state that. Mario does come at a price. We will answer a few questions here and there, but at the end of the day, we both, have to make a little bit of a living. So just so you understand, every content that we paste in here, by all means, it is free. It is yours to have and everything else. And again, you're about to get next week an automation that probably took hours and weeks for Mario to create. 60 hours. Okay, so even worse. That's probably like a $10,000, $15,000 automation. So, oh my God, that's hilarious. That actually really looks like me. Go and it kept my band and everything. Oh God, I can't wait to see this thing happen. So Gemini the VO is free. You only get a certain limited amount of credits. You do have to be on the Pro plan. The Ultra, though, gives you full access, but I think you get up to 10,000 credits a month.
Which VO3 is only on the Pro plan. I totally agree with Carla about Nuno's course, guys. If you're on Udemy, search Nuno's course. It's absolutely wonderful. He did a kick butt job on putting together the smash and grab for HighLevel. It's a great way to get familiar with the system, to get acclimated, to really become that experienced user that gives you the confidence to sell. So highly, highly recommend subbing to Nuno's Udemy course. It is well worth the $20.
You want a prompt for Nuno's hands flailing in the air? I don't know if you want that. That might be a bad choice for you, Kodak. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Holy crap.
So you got a little bit of spatial blur.
I look a little weird in there, but this is not Bad. I think I had an extra finger in there somewhere.
And the other one's only 80% done rendering.
Mario, you know what I found out? I don't know if you know this or not. And somebody told me this today. You see the little thing? Yeah, it's on 2. If you go to quality, the highest, that's where you get into the voice. It will actually put voice notes in there. If you give it like, tell it to generate a video doing the same exact thing, but now tell it to Nuno's excited talking about AI or something like that. So mind you guys, this is how crazy this is. I just want to make sure you guys understand the concept of what AI is doing. And this is why, honestly, this is absolutely banana. And just so you know, what Mario just used was VO2, not VO3. What he's going to do now is he's going to generate VO3. VO3 will add voice to the automation. These are all the videos you guys are seeing right now that all the marketers are geeking out on because they're doing like chiropractors adjusting somebody's back. There's people going in. I'll show you some of mine, Mario. I got people like pouring coffee and like spilling it on themselves. It's actually pretty funny. Oh, by the way, I made a transformer into cabbage for somebody's child. I don't know if you saw that. It's a moving transformer that apparently looks like this. So these are all cool things you can do. So this has voice. I don't know if you can hear it. Did you hear it speak?
Yeah, I just heard it for a second, but
yeah, so that's all it did. And then this is completely AI generated. A chiropractor correcting it back. Look at the quality of this one. A little weird because she tries to get up. I don't know why. And he sits her back down again and the cracking noise happens when she sits her back down. But that is 100% not real. I mean, AI generated, that looks that real. And then we were messing around and just trying to make some of these things work. And that's one of the ones that we have. Now, for everybody that understands what Flow is, this is, you guys can access it here. We'll put the link. It's labs.google.ai. You have to have a pro account in order to use it. And you can actually make scenes of videos. So you can make a full video into this. So I can say, now make it shoot cabbage bullets. I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. Oh, wait. Oh, man. Frame to video.
One of the craziest things, Nuno. So obviously, my mom passed away, not too long ago. Not to Debbie Downer the mood. I'm happy that she's at peace. But one of the really cool things that I found with VO3 and VO2 is that you can take a photo of a person and you can animate the photo of the person. So I actually it's currently rendering right now. It looks like it's been rendering for a bit, but it is actually a photo of her holding her ball python that she loved as a teenager. And the snake is like moving and she's like, walking. And so I've got like trying to create a little bit of a longer clip, but it's a photo from the 1970, like mid 1970s, which is just absolutely insane that you can take these photos and videos or like little clips of things from, the 40s all the way, any photo that you can find and actually animate that photo. Like how impressive is that?
Believe it or not, it's funny you say that because it was the anniversary of my father passing today. Yeah, but it was a long time ago too. So it was like, close to 14 years ago. But like what I did is I was trying to make a photo for my mom, like him interacting. And I'm actually in the process of doing the same thing. So it's been rendering also for me for a while. What was that? Yeah, we were trying to do the same thing. So go figure. Now, Wise Guy asked, how do they make in the long videos? Because in here, you can add frame to frame. So you can make a frame that can go from one to the other. And there's other apps like JSON to video and a couple of other apps that can basically do this stuff. And it can make longer videos. I think the longest video I've seen being made is about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. There's other people that are doing more, but what they're doing is they're piecing one video with another and just kind of gluing them in the middle. That's how they're getting away with the bigger kind of asks in there. Did yours finish rendering with the voice now on VO3?
No, it's still, it actually ended up crashing.
We'll let that simmer for a little bit. We're running out of a little bit of time though. But again, guys, AI, we love it. It ruins half of our weekends. And there we go. So with that being said, we'll see you next week. Again, Mario is going to be giving away, I'm going to call it the $15,000 automation in n8n because that's how much time that Mario probably spent, if not more money onto that. So anybody that shows up next week, and don't ask for it if you don't show up because you ain't going to get it. So you got to show up. We'll post it live in here and then we'll go from there. Yeah, just to confirm, in order to get access to VO3, you need an Ultra account, not AI Pro. I have AI Pro. I do not have Ultra. I can play with it. I just can't do anything long term. So if you just want to play with it a little bit, you can use the Pro. And I think Pro's at a discount. I think you get 3 months for half price. It's got a really good promo going on right now. And again, I don't want to throw any links out. We don't want you thinking like we're pitching anything here. So with that being said, everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. And we will see you guys next week on Vibe Fridays. All right. So thank you, everybody. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. We are back with our second round of Retell AI, n8n, and HighLevel. We are also going to be giving you guys the recipe of how to do this inside of n8n. And again, we are only going to post this on the actual show. So don't ask us for the link, because if you missed the show, you missed the link. So we'll make sure you guys do that. Actually, and believe it or not, HighLevel, Chase confirmed the new backend for Voice AI is going to be under Retell for HighLevel. And as always, I have my lovely guest, Mario, who's coming in from his sun-filled room with the biggest light I've ever seen in my life. Now, see, if he's under a shade, there he is. So funny enough, Mario, congratulations. You just moved and you're loving your new pad, but apparently your new pad does not come with curtains and the sun is making you blind.
Oh, man. And you think it's bad on the camera. Imagine what it's doing to my eyes right now, looking at a screen, being blinded by sunlight. Like, that's how much I love you, Nina.
Well, I mean, me and everybody else that's coming on this call to learn, right? So, I mean, everybody, to Mario's own detriment, he came on this call bearing a massive sun that's coming into his face right now to give us a hand. So, Mario, I'm going to kind of, if you're ready, I'll turn it over to you. I'll just kind of go over what we're going to go over today. And can you also confirm what I meant by how HighLevel's new base for Voice AI is going to be under Retell AI? Like, what does that mean? Like, you know, for the common person that doesn't really understand anything we're saying.
Yeah, so HighLevel, as everyone knows, is really a combination of platforms and services, some built by HighLevel, some are third party, like you have Twilio, Mailgun, things like that. So the Voice AI product specifically is a reskin and white label of Retell. Now, what that means is that your customers, because it's integrated directly into the platform, don't know that it's HighLevel and don't know that it's Retell. So they just think they got this amazing Voice AI product included in their subscription, and that's really how it works. To answer Bev's question, if you start using Retell today, you will not be able to migrate it to HighLevel. HighLevel has a very specific special integration with Retell. So it's going to have some features and some things maybe that Retell doesn't, and Retell is also going to have some features and things that maybe HighLevel doesn't.
But to be clear, right, just to kind of interrupt here a little bit, to be clear, it's still going to be the same base program that's going to be working the AI, right?
Yes, correct.
Which means that if you guys have been hearing what we've been putting down for the last like 2 weeks on Retell, Retell is one of the top actual like AI systems that we really think is going to be really good. So that's another reason why, again, we're talking about it, why Mario's going to go over it, because there's a really good marriage point between n8n, Retell, and HighLevel. And again, we have the genius of Mario that's going to basically show you guys how to do it. So if you decide to go through Retell, or if you decide to keep it in HighLevel, you know, either way is good. But this way makes it a very advanced, because then you're taking advantage of both features. You're taking advantage of the full-fledged features inside of HighLevel, and you're taking a full-fledged features inside of Retell, and you're using n8n to kind of be the little marrying component in between. And Mario is also going to share the recipe a little bit later on, so then you don't have to do all the work. So the recipe you do see is going to be the recipe you guys can actually download once we put the barcode up. So when we put that barcode up, make sure you guys get your cameras out so you can get that file and you can keep it for yourselves for anybody using n8n. So without further ado, Mario, are we ready to share screens?
Yeah, so you are good to go ahead, and I'm actually, just give me 2 seconds. I am just going to finish uploading that right here.
Again, remember, everybody that was watched last episode that we had on Vibe Fridays, and then more importantly, this one's a continuation of it. And if this gets too complex about like the way he's building it, just remember, we are going to give you the recipe on this call and only on this call. So don't ask for the link. It's somewhere in this video. If you can't find it, like, don't ask for it. Again, the fact that he's giving this is something he's poured like 60 hours plus to. This is something normally we would charge like a couple $1,000s to do. So, you know, I was making it very easy for you. We're not. We're going to make it a little hard. So search it through the video, because we want you to watch a part of the video so you can fully understand what the heck you're doing. And then if you get to the end, the barcode will be somewhere in this video. I promise you that. All right. So Mario, are we good? And then, yeah, let's just get that going.
Cool.
All right. And I'll handle all the chat. So if you guys have questions, you can go ahead and do, and we can go from there.
All right. So in Retell, if you remember last week, we set up a webhook action that is coming into n8n. Once it gets to n8n, that's the part we're going to cover today. What we need to do now is process that data. So I just want to walk you through kind of the steps. So we have our webhook node here. What you're going to do is you're going to copy this production URL over into Retell. You're going to put that in the server URL, which is what we showed you last week, in that node that is a custom action. From there, we've got some different processing steps. This is the first step you need to set. You're going to need to set your calendar ID and your location ID. These are the two main fields that you need to set for this entire scenario. pretty much every single field after that, there are a couple things like the location ID that you need to swap out. But what it does is it sets the initial variables. It searches for the contact. So what we want to do is we're searching the contact by phone number. So once we search the contact by phone number, we're going to see whether or not they exist. Now they should exist because we somehow had them in the CRM to call Retell, right? So we know that their phone number exists in the CRM. So it's going to pop up with one or many records. It's going to take the first record out of that. It's then going to get the calendar's information. Now, this step is super critical because this step contains a lot of information around your appointment duration. It contains information around the buffer times, how long they can book out. Like all those different pieces are contained in this calendar step. So a super critical step that you have here, again, this is really probably these three steps, 4 steps are some of the most important ones. Where it gets a little bit special is where we get into the determining if US or Canada, and then looking up time zones. So these scripts in here that we have here with all of these different area codes, now this scenario will only work if they are a US-based entity. This will not work for inbound or outbound calling on foreign entities. I can help you with that script on a separate call. That's totally fine, but it is something that right now this one is configured for US specifically. So what it's going to do is it's going to look up their time zone. It's going to determine what their time zone is and what the offset is and what the current hours are. So you have all this information in here. And it's basically based on their area code. It will set their time zone. It does some steps with determining whether or not daylight savings time is active. So I don't know, Nuno, how much you know about like time zones and DS or EST versus EDT, but
I know that. So ironically enough, we actually have an open issue right now, an open ticket inside of HighLevel, where our customers are coming in at a certain time. It's time stamping them with their time zone, and it looks like the email is going out 4 hours later, but it's really not. We're in our time zone, they're in their time zone, and now HighLevel's given us 2 times, and the times are really the same time, but it's 2 separate things. It does create a little bit of an issue there, and when it comes to Voice AI can only really operate in one time zone, which is what he's solving for right here, and what we don't have a natural solve for inside of GHL, at least for now. So it does get a little bit cranky in that sense, where all of a sudden you think you're booking in one time zone, but you're actually booking in a time zone, and it does make it a little bit challenge for that. But again, you're going to get this recipe. This 2 things alone, well, 3, right? The set area code, the lookup, and the determine DST inactive or not. This is probably worth its weight in gold. And I mean, probably literal gold, because the amount of coding that it takes to get all that and all the numbers that he had to list in the time zone, you guys are going to be getting that later on. And that's going to be in the coding and all that already. So that code itself is already worth like the price of admission for this video, if you guys decide to go with Retell and connecting it again in HighLevel.
Yep, and the determined time slots is actually probably the even more valuable one. So what it does now is it performs some date transformations. This is to be compatible with HighLevel's API. It gets all of the free slots. Now what happens is, let's say that you have 2 weeks of availability, right? And you ask HighLevel for what availability do you have on the calendar. It simply dumps every time that you have available in that time window, even in 24 hours. If you're booking in 15-minute increments, that's like 100 different values, right? So what I've done is I've actually written a simple, not a very simple, but a script that goes through and determines the most relevant time that is potentially close to when that customer wants to book. So this one is a super special code card. It then does some field manipulation just to standardize that, and it sends it back to Retell. So this is the basics of the scenario. It is a lot simpler than it seems. Once you get into it, you can realistically deploy this scenario. And as long as in the search contact, set initial variables, get calendar, and get free slots, that you set the appropriate location ID and calendar IDs, the whole scenario should just function. So Nuno, did you get a copy of that in the private chat?
I did. So what we're going to do is we're now going to share this recipe. So for anybody that is on, as long as I can get to it, there we go. So this is the actual recipe, the Retell n8n recipe. So everybody on, make sure you guys are getting it right up here. It's going to be on the top left. So anybody that's there now, if you want to get this n8n recipe to run Retell, make sure you do it now. So for everybody watching, this will actually show up on the live. So again, you'll have to go through there and grab that recipe as you guys see fit. Now, Mario, a couple of questions, right? So let's just think about how this actually works because I'm still a little confused, right? I get a call inside of GHL. GHL then sends a webhook out for an incoming call. That webhook is what we just saw here, right? It comes into n8n. Well, how does the conversation start? Like, how does that work?
So they call the Retell phone number.
Okay.
The Retell phone number picks up, and then the Retell phone number is what answers voice AI. It then communicates with n8n, and n8n communicates back to Retell, and then it books it inside HighLevel. The actual booking function is another part of that same scenario. It's just 2 steps. It's literally just like...
So all we're grabbing inside of GHL is the calendar.
Exactly. The calendar and the contact information.
Perfect. So this recipe is for somebody using Retell, where the call is going directly into Retell, the bot's engaging, asking questions, doing whatever it's prompted to do. When it comes to the point of getting the calendar inside a HighLevel, this is what the Retell recipe that, again, Mario busted his butt on, that you now have access to. In there, it's got all those calculations and everything else, and it goes through. Now, Bev asked a great question. Wouldn't this recipe generally work for other use cases, not just Retell, with just a few
Absolutely.
It would. So that whole calculation pretty much would. Well, actually everything, right? Except the webhook.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So anybody using any kind of AI that you want to go ahead and use a webhook to go into and grab the calendars, you guys just got a pretty decent thing in there. Now, again, the reason this is important for everybody that's watching is, look, we are massively huge fans, obviously, of GHL. GHL, like every other software out there, is going to have a couple of limitations, especially when it comes to AI. AI, depending on which the AI is always going to have a bit of limitations. The other thing that I will tell you, when I was first working at Capital One, and like when we had like over, we were building softwares and we were having projects, understand that there's a pretty big error rate that's acceptable. And in the normal corporate world, 3 to 5% error rate is the normal thing. When it comes to AI, the hallucinations and the mistakes are a little higher, man. They're like in the 10 to 20%. And you're dancing around that almost every day. So whether you're selling this to a customer or whether you're actually, doing this for yourself, always understand that there's going to be a higher error rate with the AI than there would be with the normal, like, let's just say automation, right? Now, here's the thing. The other thing that you guys got to understand is a human has a higher error rate than the AI, because the AI might be about 20%. A human can almost be close to 60 to 70% where it's doing really well, and about a 30 to 35% error rate. So it still beats the average human. And the more sophisticated we get with the AI, the less chances for errors are going to occur, especially as these things kind of evolve and go in. And Mario and I are both knee deep in working with the developers on AI. And I can tell you, I've seen some of the great upgrades that are going to come in the next month. I've seen Retell. I've seen Accessible. I've seen a couple of other AIs. Retell is very, 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 very good. And we're messing around with it now. A lot of people are scanning this thing. This might be a hit. You might blow up your GitHub server.
Well, that's what I was going to say is follow me on GitHub, everyone, and check out the rest of my repositories, because I actually have a lot of free code. And this is where I kind of dump all of my free code for HighLevel. So I've got some, different HighLevel hacks. I've got codes for WordPress. I've got just all kinds of stuff in that GitHub. Just follow me on GitHub and you'll have access to it. It's just a great place to, check out what I'm doing. I'll post the rest of the Retell code on there as well. So you'll see a couple more files pop up in that listing. Just go to that Mario Aldi's Retell AI repo.
Yeah, cool. So really quick, any questions, you guys? Because we are going to keep this short today, because Mario literally is like a no sleep, but we promise we deliver that. He went over it in full details. We show you how to connect the webhook on the last one. So more importantly, any questions before we close out in the chat? If not, we are going to do a very small Vibe Friday, but we wanted to deliver the value and wanted to make sure you guys have what you need in order to do it. But questions, we're going to give it another like 3 minutes. A lot of thank yous, Mario. So obviously this was exactly what people are looking for. But anybody, go check out Retell. Understand that Retell is now the base program that HighLevel's built under. So the same functionalities. Again, you're going to have some here, some in Retell. So HighLevel will have a set bunch that will be under Retell, but it'll be inside of our system. Retell will have its own subset that will have other features that HighLevel doesn't. So whether you're using Retell and HighLevel through Retell or Retell through HighLevel, there might be a connection that you might need, and this is going to solve a lot of your problems. Retell is a more advanced AI So it is very good. Just like I said, I'm a big fan of Accessible. I'm a big fan of Retell. And you saw Mike go through it. You saw now Mario go through Retell. And again, you're talking to a person who's built God knows how many systems in that. I'm starting to catch up a little bit, man. I'm starting to build a few.
Hey, man, I gotta come keep up with my office setup.
Oh yeah, well I forget. We actually got to go through it. Yeah. So, but Rick, if you scan that code, that's going to take you to the GitHub repository. If you just look up, you'll see his information. You can just shorten it and go from there. And that's it. So guys, again, we want to wish you all a very happy Friday. Like I said, we got a lot going on. Mario just moved. We need to get him some sleep. He's burning his face literally alive for you. And just follow us along next week. That's exactly right. Man, the white light on you is hilarious. But with that being said, enjoy, and we'll be back next week with another Rock and Vibe Friday. And we'll see you guys soon. All right. Thank you, everybody. And we'll talk to you all soon.